Hello, Om Swastiastu. My name is Gani. I am a college student of English Educational Study Program in STKIP Agama Hindu Amlapura. In this advanced speaking subject, I want to share tips to develop the speaking skills of your students. Okay? Speaking is a fundamental language skills. It is the primary way in which we can communicate information. When we ask how well we can function in a second language, we ask the question, how well do you speak? So, it is the ability to speak well which best represents our proficiency in another language. As teachers, however, we must be mindful that speaking involves more than simply using words to articulate what we are thinking, and there is more at play than simply asking students to say the words that they know. So, what are the tips? First, communicative competence. Being a good speaker is a range of skills beyond accurate grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Though these are the basic building blocks that enable a message to be understood, an effective communicative chooses the words they use and the way in which they speak to different people in different situations, whether that is considering uh, like ordering a sandwich at a snack bar or giving a keynote speaker speech at an academics event. The skills involved in how we interact with others in different way, which are called communicative competencies. Teachable skills which frame the language used in interaction in different settings. Speaking as a language skills involves these competencies much more than it requires. Accuracy of language. So when we talk about teaching speaking, we are talking about something different from grammar or vocabulary practice. Speaking can be used to practice a new language as is common in question answer tasks or role plays held after specific language instruction, but this kind of activity may not teach the skills of speaking itself. Okay, number two, teaching speaking as a set of competencies. Just as we can instruct, present, and practice specific grammar features to students, the component competencies which make up speaking a pure language skills can also be broken down and presented systematically. Some useful language sub-skills which can be turned into practice activities are avoiding repetition, responding um, appropriately while listening, checking technique, politeness, circumlocution or talking around unknown words using non-language, and the last, extending ideas. Notice that none of those sub-skills make specific reference to grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation, though obviously these are necessary for students to communicate what they want to say. In order to bring the focus onto these competencies, it is therefore advisable to lead speaking tasks on topics that are familiar to students and using language that is within their ability. Taking the strain of new language out of speaking activities allows students to focus on the pure sub-skills listed above. This is similar to the way in which native speakers are trained for public speaking or assertiveness in social situations. As native speakers, they are comfortable with the structure of their own language, but want to develop other skills which go along with that. Number 3, discourse and organization of message. Many of these features of speaking fall into the categories of discourse, the organization, and the style of a message as it is delivered in different situations. When teaching speaking in a given context, think about how people actually speak in that situation. Find recording of people interacting in restaurants, banks, or wherever your lesson will be set, and think about the functional steps of the interaction as it happens. You will probably find the most interaction that you listen it is to quiet, formulaic, and predictable, so can be used as a structure for the dialogues that you present and practice in class. Only with the organization and ordering of the speech as the focus on the class rather than the specific language used. Taking an opposite approach, think of situation where the above list of competencies is common. For example, we often use circumlocution when we are talking about complex technical subject, like when we describe a problem we are having with a gas cooker, car engine, or plumbing. We may not know the exact name of the part which is not working, but we can still communicate it to a gas filter, mechanic, or plumber. This is a useful life skills and one which can be used to harness second language speaking for language learners. Okay, number 4 is restricted and free speaking. Again, as with grammar and vocabulary, we can incorporate these target competencies into standard formats or lessons. We can present the future of speech through an audio or video task and then ask students to practice applying the feature in a restricted task. Gap dialogues, ordering lines in a script, or choosing the best alternative from 3 different responses in a conversation. Again, as long as the learners are playing with language they already know, their discourse brains will be more engaged and they will have more focus on the competencies they are learning. Free speaking tasks should be exactly that, student-student interaction, which does not have too many limitations. Give students a topic or situation and ask them to script out a typical interaction in that situation. Assign roles to different students so that they can practice speaking to different people and see how they flex their ideas when talking to their boss or as compared to their 7-year-old daughter. This will open the features they are learning in application to different types of speech. Finally, be aware that although few learners have been focusing on these great features of spoken communication, they have not yet had the opportunity to fully apply this until they have spoken totally freely, without a script or notes to work from. After all, native speakers don't carry scripts around with them to use in sandwich bars. They do have an expected script in their mind, which informs their use of language by participating in a speaking event with another students or students. The same dialogue that was used in free practice can be repeated, though with different participants to ensure spontaneity and flexibility with language. Only then you can say that students have truly applied what they are learning by the end of the class. Okay, so that are the 4 tips. The conclusion that on that tips are, all in all, when planning a speaking skills lesson, be aware that using language in speech is not necessarily Practice of speaking as a language skill. Developing the range of competencies that make a good speaker takes focus on the way that we speak to different people and the ways we construct what we are saying. This is independent from the grammar and vocabulary we use in real life. So, should be kept separate from pure language input the language classroom. Okay, all that's the explanation about tips to develop the speaking skills of your students. I hope all of you can get my point, and thank you very much for your attention. I will become more excited if you give me feedback or any advice. Thank you very much. Goodbye.